All right, so Black Myth Wukong. You sent over a ton of stuff about this game. Clearly, it's got people talking.
Yeah, it's everywhere right now.
Seems like there's something about this game that's really grabbed people's attention, though. And not just in the usual new game hype kind of way.
Right, it's more than just, is it good this time around? It's gotten, well, kind of messy.
Definitely messy. And we're going to dive into all that. But first, for anyone living under a rock the past few weeks, let's quickly cover the basics. This game is blowing up.
It really is.
When you sent over those Steam stats, 2 million concurrent players at its peak, that's beating out some serious heavy hitters. Dota 2, even.
Yeah, and it's one thing to get that initial wave of players right, but for a brand new IP, a single-player game at that, to hold on to people like this, that's not just hype, that's something special.
And the reviews reflect that, right? You had those Steam reviews, something like 96% positive.
Yeah, 96%. That's almost unheard of these days. And it's not just random gamers either. We're talking big industry names singing its praises. You sent over that Hideo Kojima quote, right? Calling Black Myth Wukong amazing.
Oh yeah, if Kojima says a game is good, that's worth paying attention to.
And it's not just him either. I saw Asmongold, who's not exactly known for mincing words, called it one of the best games he's played in years. And he's usually the first one to call out any whiff of BS in the industry.
So you've got a game that's undeniably popular. It's getting rave reviews, at least from some very important voices. Yet you also sent over a bunch of stuff about how it's being snubbed, even attacked. What's going on there?
Yeah, so that's the weird part, right? It's like this bizarre disconnect. You've got all this positive stuff, and then, well, let's take the Golden Joystick Awards, for example. Completely ignored Black Myth Wukong for their Game of the Year.
They just pretended it didn't exist.
Pretty much. Which is strange, considering...
Well, considering everything we just talked about.
Exactly. And it's not just that... Remember that whole thing with IGN's Game of the Year reader poll?
Oh, right. That was interesting.
To put it mildly, according to data some people polled, for a while there, Black Myth Wukong was dominating the polls, and then, bam! Rating tanks overnight. Meanwhile, all the other games stay pretty consistent, like statistically impossible levels of vote fluctuation.
Super fishy. But okay, maybe that's just some weird internet anomaly, right? Except then you get into the articles you sent, some folks are saying there's a full-blown smear campaign going on against this game, even the developers, Game Science.
Yeah, and some of the stuff out there is wild. Early on, it was those accusations of sexism aimed at Game Science, which, as you pointed out, were based entirely on mistranslated social media posts.
Which is a whole other can of worms, right? Like, isn't the whole point of this supposed inclusivity push to, actually understand each other better? Jumping to conclusions based on a mistranslation seems a bit counterproductive, to say the least.
It really shows how quickly things can spiral out of control online. But the thing is, even after those initial accusations were debunked, there's still this weird undercurrent of negativity about the game from certain corners of the internet.
Like those articles you highlighted. The one saying Black Myth Wukong's success is only because of Chinese players.
Exactly. Like somehow that's a bad thing.
Yeah, last I checked, having a massive, passionate fan base, especially in what's now the world's biggest gaming market, that's a good thing.
Exactly. It feels like they're trying to discredit the game's success, diminish its impact, because it doesn't fit a particular narrative.
Okay, so we've got potential award show shenanigans, we've got these weird articles, but then we get to the really out there stuff. Accusations of extortion attempts and hidden political agendas. Where do we even start with that?
All right, so buckle up, because this is where things get interesting and a little bit more speculative. So this is where we get into those claims about diversity consultants supposedly being brought in.
Okay, yeah, the whole $7 million extortion attempt. That's what really made my eyebrows shoot up. What's the deal with that?
Right, so this is coming from some pretty big names in the streaming community.
Okay.
They're alleging that Game Science was pressured to hire these diversity consultants, and to get this, the supposed fee was a whopping $7 million, just to, make sure the game didn't attract any unwanted criticism, that it was inclusive enough.
$7 million. Seriously, that's a lot of money. For consultants, what were they offering? Some kind of magic inclusivity wand? Do we know what was actually in these supposed guidelines they were pushing?
That's the thing, right? The guidelines, or at least what these streamers claim was in them, specifically said not to mention certain things, like feminist propaganda was one. Oh, and anything about Chinese politics, that was a big no-no, apparently.
So wait, they're trying to control what people say about the game before it even comes out? Isn't that kind of, counterproductive? Even if you think those topics are totally off limits, trying to force that silence just makes it seem like you're hiding something.
Right. it definitely raises some red flags. Is this just a company trying to, like, navigate a really complex global market and not step on any toes? Or is it something more calculated? Like, are they trying to control the narrative around the game from the get-go?
And the whole $7 million thing is tied into this. So the theory is game science refused to play ball, and that's why there's this weird backlash going on.
That's what some people are saying, and it does kind of track with the fact that, from what we've seen so far, Black Myth Wukong doesn't really push any particular ideology, politically or otherwise.
Right.
It's sticking to a pretty classic interpretation of Journey to the West. You know, the characters, the themes, the overall vibe, it's all pretty consistent with the source material.
Which is actually kind of refreshing, if you think about it. I mean, look, representation in games, thoughtful discussion of important topics, that's all crucial, right? But being told what to think, or worse, being punished for not towing a specific line, that's not cool.
Exactly. It's such a tough balance, right? On the one hand, you've got creators who should be free to make the games they want to make, tell the stories they want to tell. On the other, there's this very real and valid desire for more diverse voices, for different perspectives in gaming.
And it feels like, somewhere along the line, those two things became oppositional. Like it's one or the other when it doesn't have to be.
It's true. I think we've lost the ability to have, like, nuanced conversations about this stuff without it becoming this huge polarizing battle.
For sure. And let's not forget, we're only getting one side of this story.
Right.
We haven't seen these supposed contracts. No one's confirmed any hard numbers. It's all still very much in rumor territory.
Absolutely. We have to be careful about jumping to conclusions.
Definitely. But still, even if half of what we've discussed is true, it does make you wonder, right? Is Black Myth Wukong becoming this weird flashpoint for a much larger conflict that's been brewing in gaming for a while now?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? You've got this game that's hugely popular, it's being praised by players, by some pretty big names in the industry, but then you have this other side, these attempts to discredit it, to tear it down.
And it makes you wonder if a game this popular, this well-received, can face this kind of pushback. What does that say about the state of the industry as a whole? Like, are gamers feeling ignored? Or even demonized? You sent over that one article. It compared this whole situation to Gamergate.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Which, regardless of whether you think that's a fair comparison or not, it does highlight this growing disconnect, right? What a lot of gamers seem to want, what they respond to, versus, well, what certain parts of the industry are pushing.
For sure. Like, is it critics, journalists, even other developers?
And Black Myth Wukong is stuck right in the middle of it all.
Which leads us to a pretty important question. What's the role of critics? Award shows, I mean, is any of that even relevant anymore? In a world where it seems like gamers have all the power.
That's a good question, right? Used to be, you get a glowing review in a big gaming magazine, or you snag that Game of the Year award, boom, instant success. But like you said earlier, look at those reader polls, look at what people are saying online. Gamers are talking to each other now.
They don't need some reviewer to tell them what's good, what to play.
Exactly. And if they feel like something's off, they're not afraid to say it. Which, circling back to Black Myth Wukong, let's say, hypothetically, it is this amazing game everyone's saying it is, but it gets snubbed by these big award shows, maybe because it didn't play by the rules, whatever those are.
Right.
Does that actually hurt the game? Or does it just make those awards, those institutions, seem out of touch?
Right. It throws the whole system into question, doesn't it? If the people who are supposed to be the tastemakers, the ones who decide what's good and what's not, if they're ignoring what gamers clearly love, I mean, what does that say about them, about their credibility? It's like almost a power shift happening in real time right in front of us.
So big picture, someone like you who follows all this stuff so closely, Black Myth Wukong, is this a fluke? Or is it a sign of things to come? What's your gut telling you?
You know, it's really too early to say for sure, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. At the very least, it proves that gamers, they're a force to be reckoned with. And they're not afraid to call out BS when they see it, whether it's hypocrisy or double standards or just, you know, being talked down to.
And hey, maybe, just maybe, all of this leads to some much needed conversations, right? About how we evaluate games, how we discuss them, in a world where everyone's got a voice, everyone's got a platform.
Couldn't agree more. It's a fascinating time to be a gamer, that's for sure.
It really is. And that's what makes these deep dives so interesting. We can dig into all the details, trying to make sense of it all, but ultimately, it's up to each individual to decide what it means to them. What do you think?
Exactly.
What stood out to you from everything we talked about today? keep exploring those questions, and most importantly, keep playing the games you love. Don't let anyone tell you what you should or shouldn't enjoy. Until next time.